All right, so now we're going to get into kind of grouping up the classes based off of, again, how I think the skills are used. And so the, I guess the first tier I want to do was the, I call it the already submitted to feedback section group. And this is the group that is looking at the line counts from earlier in the video and is already submitting their feedback section complaints, is already complaining about why the lines are so low, needing a buff before it even comes out. And that is, it's quite a big group, and I honestly don't blame any of them. I got Arans in there, Angelic Buster, Ice Lightning Mage, Demon Avengers, Ho Young, Marksman, Kaiser, Cadena, and Adele. Arguably the lowest damage dealing line counts in the game, and just for V4, and they just need help, a lot of it. So that is the bottom tier, and then I want to go with something a little bit more positive to balance it out. I think this is my favorite group. This is the one of one, the number one, what I call the 100% transparency group, the best looking V4 in my opinion, and that is right here, the Battle Mage. And I mean, if you haven't seen the Battle Mage skill, this is just legendary stuff, honestly. I think this is just badass. Takes up the whole map. Good for bossing. It's not going to miss anything. It's good for training. You're just going to wipe everything out. I think that, not going to lie, that's pretty sweet. Because then you can also attack while you're doing it. And that's just Nightwalker, 170 hyper on crack, in my opinion. So that is pretty sweet. It does pretty good. It does okay damage too, but it looks like, if that's a 40-second duration for training, that is just going to be insane. And bossing, it's not going to be half bad either because it is passive, right? So it's doing 912 lines, but you also can do all your main skills as well and do everything else on the side. So it's just passive free damage all around. So I really like that one. That's the one of one, my favorite. Let me know if you agree and what you think is the best looking one, but I thought that one just stood out to me and was honestly quite unique. And battle mages are unique in their own right. So that is where I was at. And then the next group is what I call the set it and forget it group. And these are sort of skills that it's a weird grouping, right? I didn't really know where to put some of these classes, but these are sort of skills that may have a bit of micromanaging, testing at first, trying to figure out the best ways to maximize DPS. But I think in the end game, it's just going to be skills that most people are going to put on their pet. They're going to add to their preset. And the difference between trying to micromanage it and trying to min-max it versus just doing that and putting it in our pet and setting it and forgetting it and just adding it to your rotation is going to be so minimal that everyone's just going to end up doing that, right? And that is, I got the heroes, the phantoms, Evans, Xenon, Blaster, and DK. And I think this is a well-rounded group because heroes have an actual active skill that's on a 30-second cooldown that I think they're just going to throw into their preset. Phantoms may be the same way because they have so many dang skills. Evans, short skill with a short cooldown. I think Blasters are the unique one. And DKs and Xenon, they're all pretty similar, I think. Whereas I think Blasters, if I understood it correctly, it is a active skill, but I think you just put it on pet and it just sort of just does lines while you're attacking. So it's just, again, maybe passive lines as long as you're doing damage. So it's something you're just going to put on your pet or just do it with your burst and it's just going to do lines for you. While Xenon and DKs are very unique where there's sort of a charging aspect to the skills where the more you attack, the more it's going to charge your V4 and the more lines it's going to do. But again, you're probably just going to put it on your pet, and micromanaging it may be very challenging to do, especially because I think DK specifically, their skill is on a 2-minute cooldown. So you almost want to, in a longer fight or certain fights, just have it up as much as possible instead of trying to wait for the perfect moment to use it, to micromanage it. And it may just be better just to throw it on pet and just use it ASAP off a cooldown. So unique grouping. Those are kind of the hard ones that I had to. They were kind of different than others, but then in this next group, I had the don't set it and forget it group, the sort of opposite. And there's only 3 classes in this group, and this is where you can't put it on a preset. You can't just throw it out there randomly, because if you miss, or if the boss moves, or if the boss does a mechanic where it's immune to damage, there goes all your lines. There goes all your damage. And that's the Shadower, Cannoneer, and Wind Archers. This is sort of what I call the Night Lord Shuriken group, where if you throw it out there and you miss, like, again, it's just crippling to your damage and lines. And so Shadowers, I found out that their clone line, or whatever their V4 is, it actually doesn't follow the boss or follow the character. So you have to place it, similar to the Shadowers Hyper 170, right? If you miss it, it's just going to be attacking in a certain spot. Same for Wind Archers. Wind Archers Shuriken is or V4 is very, almost exactly like Night Lord Shuriken, and Cannoneers are the same way. So I had a few other classes like Wild Hunters that could be similar, but they fit a different category that we'll talk about later. But that was the don't set it and forget it group. You got to know when to use it properly to maximize your lines and maximize the skill, and you cannot just be blindly using it, because it's just going to create inconsistencies in your damage and output, and that is probably the main reason why. And that's going to separate kind of the good players and the not so good players, or the good players from the great players. All right, the next tier, and this is I want to call it just call it a rebalance group. And this is what I call the Divine Judgment tier group for Paladins, where Paladins got this skill during their remaster, where it was just strictly passive lines, like 4 blast attacks, and you got this skill called Divine Judgment, which did 20 lines passively, free, just by attacking. And that is why I called it this, just call it a rebalance, because there's no added skills. No added skill to your rotation, no gameplay changes, just added passive lines to your normal rotation. Free money, as we call it, right? Without doing anything different. So that's where I put the dual blades, right? I mentioned it before. They're just getting straight passive lines, no cooldown. Sia is getting more lines to their burst. And Night Lords, again, they get passive lines. Bowmaster, Mercedes, and Dawn Warriors, all very similar. They're just attacking, and they're going to get extra lines. They're just going to throw this V4 skill, whether it's a passive or an active skill, they're going to throw it on their pet, and it's just going to do damage for them. Throw more stars, do more lines, have more attacks. Passive, free. Nothing is going to change. No micromanaging. Just easy money, as we call it. Free money. So that is the call. Just call it a rebalance. All right, it didn't change anything. There's nothing new to it really. It's just like instead of adding like 3 lines to their main skill, they're just saying it's another skill you put on your pet that does lines in another way, basically, So I got 2 more tiers, sort of in my opinion, the best, saving the best for last, and kind of in different ways, right? So I'm going to start off with what I call the best of both worlds group. And this is for Paladin players, again, the Righteous Hammers group, right? Righteous Hammers are those hammers that just circle around the Paladin and just do damage. And so they're great for bossing, and it's great for training as well. It's their best training skill, because I'm just walking around rope lifting and I will cleave things down that are just near me. And in bossing, it's obviously very good as well, because it's passive damage. As long as I'm near the boss, it's touch damage, and it does pretty good lines as well. Free lines. So it's called the best of both worlds. And these classes have something to the same effect, right? They have some sort of touch damage. They have a bounce effect, right? They have something that searches out enemies on its own, right? They have an explosion when things detonate or whatever it is. And so, if you can guess, it's great for training because it's like a Sia's orbs or disc or phantoms, um, their skill that sort of tracks or I can't think about it, but there's classes that sort of have skills that just fall. Oh, like a Night Lord's Omen V3 skill that has stars that just go around and fly around and just seek out mobs and bosses and things like that. That's the category that I'm talking about. And so I got Corsairs. It's a pretty cool V4. Lumi, Blaze Wizard, the Salamander, Mechanic. I think Mechanic is the one that's pretty cool. No, both are. Corsairs and Mechanics ones are pretty sweet. You gotta check those out. Fire Poison Mages has this sort of poison mist explosion, and the Kinesis is very similar to Lumi, where they have sort of like orbs or whatever they call it that just again track the boss. And then Paladin's flying hammers, Thor's hammers as they call it, just tracking down bosses or mobs in training or in bossing. It's just gonna target the boss and just go crazy on it. So that is the best of both worlds. I think these are some of the best, well-rounded for training, for node farming, for bossing. Right? I think the lines for most of these classes are still very, very good. Paladins, Kinesis specifically, but the other ones are good as well. And if they're good for training, which for most of these you can see mages or Corsairs and Mechanics, that's right up their alley. Kinesis, Fire Poison Mage, Lumi's, Blaze Wizards just got better at mobbing. Paladins finally got better at mobbing. So I really like this tier, this group of skills the most because of that, diversity used in both, all aspects of the game. But the last tier, strictly for bossing, these are in my opinion, maybe those classes that may sneak up on you, or if they're already at the top of the tier, are going to just be absolutely disgusting, absolutely insane. You're going to see it in Guild Dungeon, like I said, Guild Honor Battle. You're going to see it in your short runs like Arc, and in Lotus is going to get insanely fast. The burst is going to be off the charts. This is what I call the one-shot group, aka the Grand Guardian group for the Paladins. Like I said, the V3 that Paladins have, 1,600 lines. Some of these classes are going to have way more lines of that in the same amount of time frame. And so if they do it right, and if they don't miss it, and this is the difference, again, between good players and great players, they maximize all these lines. We see Paladin players all the time mess up their V3 or not use it properly. And there goes all their bursts. It's like, you can go from 20 bill damage to 50 bill damage just by getting all the lines and proccing it right. So this is the one shot, the high risk, high reward, maybe the best classes in the meta, or the sneaky best, the ones that are going to go up the charts the most. And this is you guessed it, Demon Slayer is going to be disgusting. Nightwalker is the best, I think, in the game, burst wise. Like, again, if they do 2,600 lines in 6 seconds, in another 2 minutes, so if the fight is 2 minutes and 10 seconds long, 2 minutes and 15 seconds long, they're going to do 5,200 plus lines from this one skill. Think about that. Just think about it. If the fight is literally 2 minutes and 15 seconds, they are going to get 5,000 lines from this one skill. Bruh. Sorry, Demon Slayers, Nightwalkers, Bishops, sneaky good one. Bishops are going to be good. Pathfinders, their burst is going to get even better. Pathfinders are nice. Buccaneers, their skill is sick. Shades got a little bit of a burst as well. Thunderbreakers are going to be Thunderbreakers are going to be, yeah. Wild Hunters, they have like a little turret that's similar to, I think, one of their level 100 skills, but it's just going to be even harder and faster and stronger. So if they use that right properly, it's going to be insane. And then Arc, some sort of like thing that comes up from the ground and just starts attacking. So if you have the boss in the right spot, it's got a pretty big AoE range and it's gonna do a ton of damage. as well. So that's the one shot group.